In fact, the person at 9 landed up while I was still doing my yoga. So I had to really rush. My apologies to all of you.
So,
Sorry? No, it was not because of traffic. I got late because of some political meeting. So my apologies to all of you.
no, thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Thanks, Shailesh, for summing it up so well. I will try to be brief in my questions, but you have given us courage so that maybe we can ask you some difficult questions. My first question, Mr. Minister, you are the Minister for Trade and Investment. In that sense, if I take away the food and textiles and consumer affairs from that, what kind of trade policy that you would envisage for this country going forward? Because that's a very key component of India's economic policy vision. In a sense, we have fiscal policy from the finance minister. We have got, to get the trade policy from you, we'll have the monetary policy from the RBI. So from a trade and investment minister's perspective, what would be your perspective on the trade policy going forward in light of certain comments made by some eminent trade economist, I can name him, Dr. Arvind Panagaria, who is now the Finance Commission chairman, that India needs to continue to pursue an open trade policy. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but I would like you to enlighten this audience. What is their open trade policy for you and trade policy? Yeah.
First of all, I must clarify that this government doesn't work in silos. Whether it's finance, whether it's commerce, industry, whether it's the Reserve Bank, they all work in tandem for what is good for the people of India. So when we do fiscal policy or monetary or trade, there's a huge amount of alignment amongst all of us, point one. Point two, we respect and recognize and welcome and value different viewpoints. Mr. Arvind Panagaria is a very, very old friend. In fact, I probably introduced him into our system about 15 years ago, 14 years ago, when I first came to know him. And we deeply respect his views. But I do believe that as a developing country, as a country which has a long way to go before we are able to have a completely free and open economy with capital account convertibility, with almost nil or very low import duties, we have to look at our trajectory and calibrate the trade policy as the country moves through this cycle of growth. You can't have a one-size-fits-all. So what worked for America in 2024 need not work for India at the same time. America used all these trade protectionist measures when they were developing to become a prosperous country. Even today, by the way, I wish you would do a study and come out. What is the level of protection that is given in terms of import duties on agricultural goods in Europe or in the United States of America? On peanut butter, I think it's 300% import duty. I wonder where open trade goes at that point of time. So every country, and we are an agrarian country, half our population nearly is still directly, indirectly dependent on agriculture. The United States agriculture would barely be 2% of their population. Actually, I suspect not even 2%.
Even that.
Not even 2% of their population. Many European countries have 5,000 farmers, 10,000 farmers. But they fight at WTO tooth and nail against us who have nearly 140 million families dependent on agriculture. So I think you need to calibrate. You need a practical approach. Having said that, I do believe we'll have to internationalize our economy, look at greater degree of engagement with the world. We'll have to look at rapid growth in exports. I don't know if you're aware, in the last 3 years, up to March 24, from 21 to 24, our exports have gone up both in goods and services by about 55-60%. And I think it's no mean achievement for a nation on its growth trajectory to have this kind of a growth. This year would be a little flat or a little bit on the positive side. Goods and services together will continue to be positive, despite 2 wars and the Red Sea crisis. So it shows you, and you all always project into the future, what the potential of our trade is. We'll be doing $2 trillion of exports by 2030, by the end of this decade. $2 trillion. And I have no doubt in my mind we'll achieve.
Okay.
So our trade policy is calibrated based on our development journey, yet open to expansion. We've done trade deals with EFTA. We are in dialogue with EU and UK, Peru, Chile, some countries in the GCC. We are renegotiating badly done FTAs with Japan, Korea, and ASEAN when there was hardly any stakeholder consultations. And today, you find so much criticism and so much negativity in industry and business in India about the Japan, Korea, and ASEAN FTAs. I'm almost tempted at times to recommend whether we should reconsider having those FTAs at all. But our FTAs are with tremendous stakeholder consultation. We walked out of RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which was one of the which was the lousiest decision. I'm using a harsh word. It was one of the most threatening decisions that the UPA government could have taken. We were not a part of RCEP originally. The then Congress government and their partners, which are the same as the Indie partners today, they decided to jump into RCEP. No consultations with the people of India, with industry, with agriculturists, with farmers, with MSME, with pharma. No discussion. If, God forbid, Mr. Modi hadn't come into government and he didn't have the courage of conviction to take a hard decision to walk out of RCEP on 4th of November 2019, I dare say India couldn't have seen the kind of growth story, the journey of today, or the confidence to make India a developed nation by 2047 would have all been lost. We would have been flooded with substandard, low-quality goods coming in from certain geographies and killed the investment appetite and investment climate of India.
So the RCEP decision was taken mainly for, you're not mentioning the country, but because of China. Am I right?
100%.
Yeah.
Can you believe it, friends? RCEP had, who were the stakeholders in RCEP? The 10 ASEAN countries, Japan, Korea, 12, Australia, New Zealand, 14, China, 15. It was amongst them. India was not a part of the RCEP story. In 2012, I think, India at the highest level, at the then Prime Minister's level, there is some body which is the highest policy-making body on trade and economic policy. They decided to join the RCEP negotiations, suo moto. India jumped into the fray, little recognizing that we are dealing with a country which doesn't have transparent economic policies at all, without assessing how much damage they had already caused because of badly negotiated FTAs with Japan, Korea, and ASEAN. And we already had FTA with 12 countries. With Australia, we were already on the verge of closing an FTA at that time also, which then got aborted because of RCEP. New Zealand, our total trade was $300 billion, a small little country. So what was RCEP? It was a free trade agreement between China and India that we had jumped into. And the kind of opaque and non-transparent policies of China, already Indian industry is threatened with. And so we are investing deeply in India, PLI and all of these to expand our domestic growth so we remove our dependence on countries like China.
Okay. I mean, so one would understand from you is that if there is, China is in any of the trading blocks, India will not be party to that.
Not necessarily. If China opens up its economy, makes it transparent, works with the rules of WTO.
Okay.
I mean, I remember in one of the meetings, I also had 6-8 months. I became Commerce Minister on 31st May, I think, 2019. So I had 5 months in which I had 200 stakeholder consultations. 200. With every sector of Indian industry. एक स्वर में, एक आवाज में, सबने oppose किया.
So which was a bigger factor, China or domestic industry?
I'll explain to you.
Yeah.
And सबकी concern क्या थी? कि चाइना में हम मार्केट एक्सेस मांगते हैं. When we go to China, they put roadblocks. When we go to Japan, Korea, they put non-tariff barriers. Steel industry, until a few months ago, after my struggle of 4 or 5 years, could not sell 1 kilo of steel in Japan and Korea, even though we had the same better quality or the same quality and $100 a ton cheaper. But they have that nationalist spirit. They support each other, but don't allow other countries to enter their geography. With China, I asked my counterpart with whom I was negotiating. I said, we were having coffee, and I'm not exaggerating. This is the example that I use. We were both sitting and having coffee. I said, your coffee cup and saucer being imported into India comes at a price which is less than the raw material cost in India. How do you manage that? He said, we are efficient. I said, fine, I accept you are efficient. Just give me one assurance that you will, if we ask you for information, you will open your cards whether the money for this all was remitted from India or part of it came from India and part of it came from third sources, basically implying that there's under-invoicing. Or the quality standards, if we impose, you will guarantee that you give us the good quality product. He says, no, we can't tell you where the money came from. You want to do whatever you do at your customs border. We will not open up our cards. It was one of those defining conversations when I realized RCEP cannot be good for Indian industry. It will kill the Indian economy.
Okay, let me change subject. Thanks for this clarification. You're also the Minister for Investment. And as you also beautifully explained how the government has come in a big way as a source of investment, particularly in the infrastructure sector in the post-COVID years. At a time when the private sector was not really investing enough, so it was a much needed thing. There was a very good story on foreign investment in the post-COVID years. But in the last 1 year, one has seen that foreign investment flow decelerating it a bit. Are you worried? And what needs to be done? Because if you look at the foreign equity flows from last year and in the first 9 months, there is a decline. And how would you assess it? And what is the way forward? And how do you prevent that kind of a decline?
Mr. Bhattacharya is a dear friend. Yeah. So I'll take the liberty of making a light comment. This is elementary, my dear Watson.
Okay.
And I would think Business Standard and its journalists who are known for deep research into any subject would clearly know that a country which for 7 years in a row under Mr. Modi's charge, 7 years, it's not a post-COVID growth of foreign investment. 7 years in a row, we had record foreign direct investment, year after year. We broke the previous record. Next year, we broke the previous record. Next year, we broke another record. 7 years. What happened in the last 2 years? Interest rates in the developed world shot through the roof. From less than 0.5%, they are now touching or going to touch 5% in the United States. Half or 3.75% to 5%. Now, when the interest rates in the developed world for blue chip government guilds are at such highs, it's quite elementary and obvious that there will be an outward flow of capital. And new capital will go a little sluggish or slow. Mm-hmm. Yet, if you see the numbers, they're not that bad. Some of the numbers in other emerging economies have collapsed totally. Our numbers fell nominally. Yeah. And they've again started inching up. I don't know, I read a report probably in your paper now. I don't know because you are one of my preferred morning reads. Okay. I think we saw only in the stock market FDI figure. I don't recall.
There is no doubt that globally also FDI flows have come down.
Yeah. So ours are less. You have to compare apple to apple. Emerging market.
I'm just saying that is there something that you are thinking in terms of, because foreign investment
obviously
flow has been a major thing.
Yeah. Otherwise, the EFTA agreement about which Shailesh ji alluded in his talk, I don't know whether you have realized that we have done another path-breaking initiative. Never before in the history of the world
the linkage.
has a free trade agreement been signed or agreed where a country without a bilateral investment treaty,
That's right.
this is not a BIT, this is a free trade agreement. It's about goods and services. We have a commitment from Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein, and Iceland, 4 nations together. Commitment to invest $100 billion additional. Their current investment is only $10 billion in FDI. They have committed to invest $100 billion more and create 10 lakh jobs directly. Indirect would be another 30-40 lakh jobs in India in the next 15 years in lieu of market access. Now, market access, I don't lose anything because Switzerland, the cost of production can never hurt India's interests. They make very high quality stuff, very high value stuff. The machineries they make and all are things we don't have in India. Rather, we need them in India. So I lose nothing by giving them market access on goods domestically made in Switzerland or Norway.
Okay.
I have not given market access on agriculture, so farmers are not threatened. MSME is not threatened because they can't compete ever in their life with MSMEs. Our pharma is proud today that India has an FTA with a chapter on IPR from the world's biggest threat to IPR. Switzerland was the country which always opposed India's IPR regime. We should be proud as a nation. Switzerland has signed an FTA with a robust IPR chapter without our giving up on any of our rights. Our generic medicines are protected. All the protections we needed are in that FTA, in that IPR chapter. Pharma industry, Indian pharma industry was a part of the negotiation, sitting in the room. That is the Modi style of functioning.
That's right.
And pharma industry has thanked me. And when we signed the FTA in the evening celebrations in the Bharat Mandapam, in the room you will see, we signed in the leaders' room, summit room. We celebrated in the leaders' lounge. The pharma industry stood up on stage and said, we warmly and heartily welcome this IPR chapter and the FTA. That is the new style that India works with.
My final question, Mr. Minister, and you alluded to that. What is the state and what's the government's approach towards bilateral investment treaties? Because this
That's
is an old...
not under my charge.
Okay.
We are happy that we've executed a BIT with UAE.
Yes.
We have a cautious approach. We are ensuring that India's interests are protected, but more specific details I would not be able to share with you. But I can assure you about one thing certainly, that the Modi government will always hold the national values, the nation's interests, and the interests of 1.4 billion Indians first. It is paramount that India's trajectory of growth, India's journey towards Viksit Bharat 2047 should not get hurt. Bharat ka labh sarvopari is the most important thing in any action that Mr. Modi and his team at any and every level, center or states, political or bureaucratic, at every level, the nation comes first.
On this reassurance, with this happy note, thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and please give him a big hand for making this possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I hope all the facilities are here. Everything is fine. I have my colleague here. Both the rooms are open at lunch break. You enjoy.